Now, when it comes to our next story, we shall be discussing about Pixar. And man, what a big eventful weekend that they had, especially with the release of their new movie, Hoppers. Now, I know many people in the chat have actually warned not to go and put out any spoilers. Don't worry. I will not, and hopefully you people listening and watching, you will do the same and be respectful by not saying any spoilers of it. But I will say, however, with the outcome of Hoppers, at least on its opening weekend, man, it is the most celebrated Pixar movie in quite some time, or at least the most celebrated original Pixar movie, considering that it already got a strong start at the box office, getting $46 million domestically and even $88 million worldwide, which makes it the biggest opening for a Pixar original feature since Coco. And on top of that, the reviews have been amazing, not just from critics, but also from audiences as well, with many people saying that it is the best Pixar movie in a long time. And I'll even say myself, considering that I recently did put out my review of Hoppers, I very much enjoyed the movie. I felt that it was getting a little bit slow at first, but then once Mabel does become the beaver and then runs amok in the forest, then at that point, that's when the movie just gets more and more chaotic, and that's when it gets, well, it just gets better and better and better and even more heartfelt along the way. Like honestly, I kind of went from, I don't know, it kind of feels like a B movie from Pixar, don't you think? And then at the end, I'm like, okay, this thing was amazing. I was like laughing throughout. It was great. So yeah, honestly, a fantastic movie, at least in my opinion. But this is not going to be about Hoppers. This is about what is to come from the studio. Yes, the Wall Street Journal put out this article that it says Disney needs its next hit franchise. Can Pixar's reluctant leader deliver? So this is pretty much a Wall Street Journal article that pretty much discusses about how things are at the studio, how Pete Docter is doing as the chief creative officer, and pretty much going into the business of it with like what's to come, what's been canceled, how he's been managing, how the studio's been managing, how Disney is managing Pixar, and all that kind of stuff. Now, unfortunately, not many people went and actually read this article, considering that, well, sadly, it has been paywalled, since this is, again, an article from the Wall Street Journal. However, a lot of the significant news that has been mentioned in this article that has been publicly shared all around, especially when it comes to the upcoming features that is in store at Pixar. Yes, I have mentioned that maybe there might have been a few that unfortunately have been canceled, but there is still a bunch that are not only scheduled, but also have been revealed through that article. Now, I'll start off with the sequels because those, well, they are the ones that really grab the headlines and what many people are aware of. So, as you may know, in 2028, we are going to be getting Incredibles 3, which is going to be directed by Peter Sohn. And then in 2029, we are going to be getting a Coco 2. But at some point, Pixar is also going to be developing a third Monsters, Inc. movie, or what is most likely the case here, as many people have speculated, a true Monsters, Inc. sequel, considering that the previous follow-up that they have made is just a prequel with 2013's Monsters University. Now, at this point, however, this is still quite early in production, and I might as well go and put out my comments immediately on this, that considering that I guess you could say that Pixar's schedule with the 2020 decade, or the rest of the 2020 decade, it's already been filled. Like, we already know what's going to be coming up in terms of like the original features and the sequels as well. So I'm pretty much guessing with Monsters Inc., or with the Monsters Inc. sequel, we're not going to see that until the 2030 decade. In fact, I'm going to go and make a bit of a prediction right now that I feel like that Monsters Inc. possibly sequel is going to be coming out in 2031, which would tie in perfectly with the original Monsters Inc. 30th anniversary. So honestly, I could be wrong, but I feel like that might be the move that they could possibly do, especially if this Monsters Inc. sequel is still very early in development. They'll still need a few more years in order to go and create it. So at least that's what I'm speculating with what's going to be happening in there. But don't you worry, folks. There is still a lot more original stuff that's going to be coming from Pixar. Yes, they still got some original ideas that they are going to go and create. In fact, for the rest of those, I might as well go and read you here from my source on Animation Magazine with what they have mentioned. Now, it says here... The Emeryville Dream Factory is also spreading its wings with new properties and formats in the coming years. Next year, we can look forward to seeing Enrico Casarosa's Gatto, a stylish hand-painted CG style which goes for a textured storybook aesthetic about a black cat in Venice, Italy, who embarks on a musical journey as he tries to redefine his life and leave a life of crime behind. Also in the works is One Ghost Market, an anime-influenced feature inspired by Asian myths about supernatural bazaars where the living and the dead interact, and the studio's first ever musical, which will be directed by Domi Shi, who previously was the director of Turning Red and one of the directors of Elio. So, of course, we're already familiar with Gatto, and in the past, they've already discussed about what's going to be in store with Gatto, how it's going to have a very stylized look, completely different visuals from what we regularly expect from Pixar. So we got that in which is going to be coming up, and it looks like music is going to be playing a significant theme to it. Maybe not a musical per se, but it's going to be in the style of Coco, in which they're going to go and actually, have music play an important role. That it's, like music is going to be there, but it's not going to be like a Broadway musical. That is actually going to be reserved for whatever Domi Shi is going to be directing. In that regards, that they're going to make it a true, legit musical. And again, it's going to be totally different from what they might be developing with Gatto and what they have done with Coco, where, yeah, there are some songs in there, but it's not like a focal point where it is a musical where they frequently have to stop and put on a whole musical number. That's what they're going to do with Domi Shi. So that's going to be interesting to see how Pixar is going to be handling a legit musical. And as for One Ghost Market, in which they got an anime influence feature about myths and supernatural bazaars where the living and the dead can interact. Again, that's another thing where it feels like it has a bit of a connection to Coco, or maybe not. Actually, maybe not necessarily Coco, because I just thought about, the living and the dead interact with together. Yeah, that's like with Coco. Yeah, but then again, that living and dead interaction is not intentional. Like, technically, Miguel wasn't supposed to be in the Day of the Dead in the context of Coco. But it is going to be very fascinating to see how they're going to do an anime influence feature, especially when we already did get a strong taste of that with Turning Red. That one already established a pretty solid anime-based style of animation, especially with the reactions and the character animation of the characters in Turning Red. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to go and like really double down on that and really dive deep into those those Asian myths and legends and how they'll be able to go and bring that to life. Now, that is something that I could see in terms of animation has a lot of potential. So I will say overall, in terms of the upcoming stuff that they do have, at least in terms of the concepts, I will say I'm definitely a lot more excited for the original stuff that is in store, more so than the sequels. The sequels, I feel like, okay, you know, like, as much as I really did enjoy the first Coco, and I also very much enjoyed the first two Incredibles movies, I think it's going to be more of a wait and see until, like, we do get a trailer, we do get an idea with what's going to be in store. Like, that is going to require a bit more convincing, in which, as time moves on and, like, we see more of it, maybe they'll present some stuff at D23 perhaps, or maybe like as we get closer to like 2028 and 2029, when we're going to see like maybe teasers or trailers or artwork and stuff like that, like maybe that'll require more convincing. But when it comes to the original stuff, like with Gato or One Ghost Market or that musical, that leaves the door open to like be, you know, to expect the unexpected, to see more creativity that's going to be in store with Pixar. And we've already seen how, like, now, especially with Hoppers, that the original magic, like, really, you know, it's like it's really as strong as it was like in the previous Pixar films that we all know and love. And this is not a slam towards like any of their recent features. Like, honestly, like I really do enjoy like even films like with Elemental or Elio, for example. But still with Hoppers, I do agree. Like it's the best original Pixar movie that we've had since Turning Red. And like if they could keep that energy up, then it's going to be a lot more exciting to see what those original features will have in store. So we'll still have to wait a little bit, but it's, you know, it does make me feel optimistic to know that there is going to be more exciting stuff that will be coming at Pixar. But then that excitement, unfortunately, had to be put on the side at the very least, because when it comes to this article right over here, it also came with some backlash. And unfortunately, it's not backlash towards the Wall Street Journal. It's controversy towards Pete Docter, in which there was one question that the Wall Street Journal did ask about him, especially with some of the past projects that occurred. And his response to it, oh boy, it kind of feels like Pixar had this bad wound and it just developed this gash in which, like, okay, just let it heal, just don't touch it. But they gotta rip that thing off, and then Pete Docter, unfortunately, just poured some salt over it. And this is specifically in regards to the controversy in which LGBTQ plus themes were removed from Elio. Now, to go and give you a little bit of a refresh about that particular story, this article from The Hollywood Reporter actually did summarize it pretty well as to what happened and the troubled production that Elio had unfortunately went through, to which it states right over here. The Hollywood Reporter previously reported on the lengthy reworking of Elio, which spotlights the story of a lonely boy who is beamed into outer space after being mistaken as the leader of Earth. The film was originally slated to be directed by Adrian Molina, with the main character of Elio initially being portrayed as queer-coded, considering that Adrian Molina himself is actually gay. After an early screening in the summer of 2023 in Arizona, where viewers reportedly said they liked the movie, but no one raised their hand when asked if they'd see it in a movie theater, shifts followed. Molina later exited the project as co-directors Madeline Sharafian and Domi Shi stepped in to helm the film. A former Pixar artist who worked on Elio told The Hollywood Reporter anonymously, "It was pretty clear through the production of the first version of the film that studio leaders were constantly sanding down these moments in the film that alluded to Elio's sexuality of being queer." So at that point, we then got Pete Docter, who stepped in to go and actually make a comment about those past events, and especially in regards to Elio previously having LGBTQ plus themes. And according to the Hollywood Reporter, what Pete Docter said to the Wall Street Journal is over here, in which it states, in a new interview with the Wall Street Journal, Pete Docter explained that Pixar did not want their films to force parents to have conversations that they weren't ready to discuss with their children. We're making a movie, not hundreds of millions of dollars of therapy, he said. And this was honestly at the point where I'm just there. I kind of felt like I just wanted to break down. I'm like, come on, man. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to go and say that? I mean, I want to root for you. I want to support you. I want to be happy for you, for your big success with Hoppers, how people have been loving it, you know, that things are going great for you guys. But then you got to put this up and ruin everything. You know, honestly, honestly, I can't help but feel like the only thing that I could say when I saw that comment go around and people getting pissed off about it, I'm just there like, come on, man. You know, like, and I'm not upset. You know, I'm not upset at the people who did get mad at this and just bashing Pixar, because honestly, I get it. I'm just upset at Pixar and Pete Docter for saying this, because it's like, you guys are going to get so much hate and you know you deserve that crap, man. Now, I do want to go and clarify that I know that there are people who have made speculations about why Pete Docter would go and say that. Some people have said that Pete Docter may have had a gun on his back when asked about the question. Not literally, of course, but had the Disney executives behind him to make him go and say that. And some people even claim that Pete Docter was saying that because that was for the Wall Street Journal. And the kind of people who read the Wall Street Journal are not regular everyday folk, but rather business suits who want to hear stuff like that. But still, though, that doesn't change where it doesn't change where that comment just doesn't look good onto either Pixar or Pete Docter. And that's why there's also been a lot of backlash towards the studio at the same time, where they pretty much revived this entire controversy all over again. Now, say what you will about the creative changes of Elio, because I know that, like, and I've done this as well in the past, in which there have been a lot of discussions about what Elio would have originally been, what was Adrian Molina's original vision, and maybe it was for the best that they did those changes for the final film of Elio, and those changes are not related to the LGBTQ plus themes. But still, though, like, just the mere concept alone of originally having a possible LGBTQ plus character and completely removing that is not a good look whatsoever. And that's why, honestly, it makes me pissed off when not just people like Pete Docter, but when studio heads as well, when they would go into these subjects, these topics of, of like real world issues, discussing about like really topical stuff such as LGBTQ plus themes or AI, for example, then at that point, instead of being honest with their answers, what they do is that they try to find like the middle ground that sounds so corporate, that really sounds like it was manufactured by PR in order to deliver the safest answer, and that is that is pretty much calculated in the way of saying like, oh, we're going to get the least amount of backlash if we would just give out this answer. And it's stupid, honestly, because it's not just with Pete Docter saying with something like this, but you may recall a few weeks ago when Sony Animation pulled off that same stupid stunt with this Hollywood Reporter article over here. You probably remember when I mentioned about this article in which they talked about what's going, it's the same thing with what Pete Docter did with the Wall Street Journal, basically talking about the future of Sony Animation, talking about the sequels of K-pop Demon Hunters, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, and of course their new movie Goat. And at the bottom, they were asked in regards about AI. And like right over here, when they were asked, are you integrating AI into your workflow? And one of the heads of Sony Animation stated, AI is a sweet tool that we at some point will explore and probably leverage. It seems today, Gen AI is not directable enough for what we do. So again, another PR response where they pretty much said, we're not going to do it now, but we might do so in the future. So just a little bit of a heads up, unfortunately, even though the chances are still very low, the odds that K-Pop Demon Hunters 2 is going to have AI in the movie, those chances are not zero. So I'm just saying. So regardless if it is Sony Animation admitting that they're thinking about using AI in the future, or Pete Docter and Pixar acting as if they somehow got a stupid allergy towards LGBTQ plus representation, this is one of those things that honestly, I kind of feel sick and tired of like those middle ground answers or like trying to not be political or whatever. Like, honestly, I'd rather want them to be as straightforward as possible and just say, do you support LGBTQ plus rights or do you support AI? Yes or no? Like, just give out those answers and that's it. This is another example where honestly, at this point, doing stuff like this, trying to find like the centrist answer of it all, or trying to go and like avoid the subject of politics altogether, like it's no longer going to cut it. And I feel like that's the worst answer that you could go and deliver instead of just clearly picking a side. Because stuff like this is honestly, all it does is just, it's just hurtful. It really does a lot of damage. And especially nowadays, you need to be more and more clear about where you stand upon certain subjects. Because trying to say, I don't want to talk about politics is the worst answer that you can go and deliver. Because nowadays, with the amount of damage that is being caused in the world with like oppositions towards those, or not just oppositions, but like the amount of damage that these debates have done, like especially with how they're hurting real people. Now we need to make our answers clear, and we need to be as transparent as possible. Do you support these things or do you not? Because these corporate answers, they're not helping whatsoever. So anyways, that's pretty much all that I want to go and comment on the entire thing with the upcoming stuff that Pixar has, and a little bit of the backlash that they have received because of Pete Docter's comment. Now I would like to go and pass this on to you guys in the chat wall. What do you all think about the upcoming lineups and the comments that Pete Docter has put out? Like, I know there's like a whole bunch, but I would like to know what you think on all this. All right, so let's see what we got here. In regards to Pete Docter, I don't necessarily believe he's a homophobic bigot, as the cartoon community are making it out to be, but his comment on how movies cannot be viewed as therapy is incredibly tone-deaf and poorly worded. I have the highest respect for Pete Docter, but it was not a great look for him. This is not solely a Pixar issue, but an industry issue when it comes to LGBTQ plus representation. Exactly, and I feel like Pete Docter, like at this point, like Pete Docter himself should independently speak out about this, because like it's his reputation that's now being flushed here and is now being regarded as an absolute bigot, as a pure homophobe for not clearly supporting it. Again, like that's kind of the worst case scenario now, where if you don't fully support LGBTQ plus rights, if you don't make it clear, then at that point, you're pretty much as bad as those who want to strip away your rights and like do some ethnic cleansing. So in that regards, I hope Pete Docter can actually respond to it, because yeah, it's not just Pixar's, but it's also his reputation that's really going down the line, where people are pretty much being less and less tolerant to those who don't fully support LGBTQ plus rights. I'm just warning you right now. Let's see. I will say there are definitely some solid announcements. I'm definitely very curious about the upcoming Domishi animated musical. I really like Turning Red, and I could see how she could do great with that. And I'm very curious about Monsters Inc. 3, and I'm worried, and I'm wondering if it'll take place after the events of Monsters at Work. As for Pete Docter's comment, to me, this is so tone deaf, it makes him look bad. He should have known better. But again, like many people are speculating, maybe it's Disney executives that are making him say that. It's just, but either way, like we can all agree, this is not a good look for him altogether. Anyways, okay, we got a lot here, so let's lightning round this. Monsters Inc. 3, hopefully it'll be good since I love the original and wear it up to the series. Is it Ono Ghost Market? I keep saying One Ghost Market. Or hold on, let me just double check actually in the source. Did it say, hold on, let me just double check. Is it? Oh, no. It is One Ghost Market. Okay, so it's just your comment that's wrong. Okay, anyways, One Ghost Market, such a unique idea for a movie. Domishi's next movie, about time Pixar makes a legit musical. Pete Docter's statement about Elio cutting its LGBTQ plus element, very tone deaf. What's wrong with you, man? Brief review on Hoppers. Man, did I need that laugh. Yeah, life's been a little bit hard. Yeah, I don't blame you, man. I really don't blame you. Anyways, it's a bit hypocritical for Pete to be saying those things since people hold Pixar in a high regard and having big themes and depth than most animated films. Also, wasn't Soul a film that deals with subject of existential living? Come on, Pete. Now you're just proving my point of your hypocrisy. Yeah, that's sadly true, man. That's also another thing that people will keep pointing out. Like, you don't want people to go to therapy, but the themes of Pete Docter's movies, especially, like, not just, not just with Soul, but also with Up and especially with Inside Out. Yeah, like, I don't think he should be in a position to go and talk about, we don't want to send people to therapy, which, I mean, why not send people to therapy? Therapy is actually good. I mean, I've been doing therapy lately, and honestly, it's been doing wonders for me. Let's see. What other comment is there? All right. I've already shared my full thoughts on Blue Sky. If anybody wants my full opinion, check it out there. But here's the short version. I get what he's saying, but it was so condensed that it comes off as him being against the idea of LGBTQ plus themes in movies. Part of me believes he's not a bad person like Lasseter, and it's higher ups talking through him. But then again, looking at what happened with Lasseter, hopefully he can be clear the air soon so that so far it's not looking good or better yet. Let's hear Adrian's POV. Exactly. Like, this is honestly something that needs a bit more clarity because, well, it's safe to say that PR stunt didn't work at all. So we got one more comment to go and read because, well, let's just say the timing of it kind of needs me to have the next story come up soon. So let's see. I'll go with this one over here. So, the original movies actually sound really awesome. I'm excited for an actual Domishi movie or Domishi musical. I know Domi directed Elio, but it's more like she was trying to remake a movie in less than 2 years. I don't envy her position. But what about Turning Red, though? Anyways, the Monsters Inc. sequel kind of feels like it has the most potential, at least in my head. But Pete, better word choice, man. Blame the execs. If they fire you, the audience will be on your side and say you were unfairly treated. Instead, he made it a PR nightmare. Exactly, man. And I'll even say, I don't really believe Pete Docter really is a bigot per se. I don't think he is straight up homophobic. I just hope he does have an opportunity to really clear the air and actually make his stance about LGBTQ plus themes. Because again, taking the I don't talk about politics route, that is not helpful for anyone. In fact, it's honestly more damaging for everyone, including yourself.